Last month, about 2 weeks ago, a British journalist called Steve Sweeney, who lives and works in Beirut, Lebanon, was in southern Lebanon attempting with a cameraman to document what the Israeli military is doing to the southern part of that country, which is leveling it, moving people wholesale out, including Christian villages across the area. And as he was preparing his report, he was targeted by an Israeli-owned, American-made aircraft that fired a missile at him in an attempted assassination. Here's what it looked like.
Further rocket attacks were reported against Nahariya and a minute. Fucking hell. Fuck.
That wasn't an accident. It was intentional. The jet that fired it had flown over his position, attempting to assassinate him, as the Israeli government has assassinated, on purpose, not accidentally, assassinated, murdered so many journalists, including Western journalists trying to cover its atrocities that are spreading even now under the cover of the Iran war, a massive land grab across the region, killing of Christians, desecration of Christian holy sites. That's all happening. It's all real. And one of the reasons you may not know about it is because the people trying to record it, to chronicle it, have been assassinated. But Steve Sweeney was not assassinated by luck or the grace of God, by a quirk of the landing of that missile. He survived. He joins us now to explain what happened. Steve, thanks very much for doing this. I'm grateful you're alive. We just played the tape of the moment where you were almost killed. Can you add context to that and describe what was happening?
Well, yeah, you've seen the footage. We were incredibly lucky to come out of that situation alive. It was only purely by luck that the missile ended up, as you've seen on the footage, it went through the hole. The bridge had already been destroyed. So just to give you some context of why we were there, Israel had issued these evacuation orders. It said that it was going to bomb every single bridge in South Lebanon. So the bridges that cross the Litani River. This connects the south of Lebanon to the rest of the country. So this was a hugely important news story. This is essentially cutting off, a whole swathe of the country. And they'd started the bombing the night before. It was a Thursday when we went to the bridge. On the Wednesday evening and into the early hours of the morning, they'd started targeting the bridges. So, as a journalist and as a war correspondent, we were there to report on this huge news story. So we drove down. This is in Sur district, or Tyre district, as other people will probably better know it. And as we approached, the Lebanese army have a base there. They just ahead of the bridge. So we approached them and we said to them, okay, is it safe to film? And they assured us it was perfectly safe for us to go on that bridge. And they would know, because if Israel is about to bomb a bridge, which they had already bombed it the night before, then they would get a message to the Lebanese army via UNIFIL, the United Nations peacekeepers. They don't have direct communication. So there was no pre-warning that this bridge was about to be struck again. There was no military objective in striking the bridge again. It was already destroyed. You could barely even walk across it, let alone take a vehicle across it. So this was the al-Qasmiyeh bridge. This was the smaller bridge. So these kind of link villages and settlements in South Lebanon together. So, okay, we approached the bridge. We set up our camera. We started filming. There were fighter jets roaring overhead. And again, this isn't uncommon in the south of Lebanon, but we knew that the fighter jets were flying away from us. So they were roaring overhead, but they were heading further south, and they were bombing what they would describe as Hezbollah positions around that area. So we weren't still unduly concerned, and we went onto the bridge and we started filming. So it wasn't live. Some people have said it was live. It was what we call an as live. So we were filming that. Ali Rida, who is my colleague, was at the moment we arrived on the bridge. I was doing my piece of camera. He went to film some B-roll. He went to film in the hole where the bridge had been struck. And it was, we talk about luck and we talk about the chance and we talk about God's will, but As he was filming, there was a gust of wind on the camera, and the tripod was shaking. So I called him over, and I said, Ali, yalla, please come. The camera's shaking. I need you to steady it. As he came over, I guess around 15 seconds later, then we heard this tremendous roar, and the Israelis struck the bridge again. And I mean, the immediate aftermath, I mean, I remember just thinking, God, we're dead. That was it. It was like this earth-shattering sound. The explosion it was an almighty blast, and then there was just dust, and I couldn't really see anything. And from the footage, you can hear the soldiers. Maybe they started saying to me, "Yalla, yalla," and I couldn't see anything. So I was where? And they took me into their barracks. They put tourniquets on my arms. I thought, again, with the adrenaline rush, I just thought I'd got some minor cuts. I couldn't really feel too much pain, but then I looked, when they put the tourniquet, there was blood coming down my arms, there was blood on my clothes, but I was alive. And it's, again, completely by chance that we were alive. This was a very heavy munition that they'd used, a GBU38 missile that we believe was used, and it was fired from an F-16 fighter jet. So after the Lebanese army they put these tourniquets on and gave us some water, then they called an ambulance, and the ambulance came, and they put me on a stretcher, and they off they took me. And I should note, really, that the paramedics and the emergency workers and the doctors and the nurses and all of the medical team that attended to us are the real heroes of this story. As we were traveling from the bridge to the hospital, I'm not sure the distance, maybe about 10 minutes, probably less than that, but they had the blue lights on. Now, in any normal country anywhere in the world, having the blue lights on and being transported somewhere by ambulance, you would be safe, right? Not in Lebanon, because the Israelis are now targeting medical staff. More than 50 have been killed. Hospitals, including the one we attended, the Jabal Ammel hospital, part of that has been destroyed in Israeli airstrikes. And we've been working in the field for many years now. We're very experienced journalists, and we take safety very seriously. We've spoken to a lot of medical workers, and they told us that the logo on the top of the ambulances, which is supposed to give them protection under international law, under the Geneva Conventions and this kind of thing, instead of giving them protection, it now places them at risk. So many of them have removed those logos from their emergency vehicles. Now, barely a day goes by now that when we don't hear of a medical worker being struck. The IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, soon after they carried out a massacre of 12 emergency workers in the south, targeting their station, they put out a statement saying that that Hezbollah is using medical facilities and ambulances for military purposes. Now, of course, they didn't back that with any kind of evidence. This is a statement that they've reissued again quite recently. But yeah, we've been on the ground. We've been in the back of the ambulances. We've been in the hospitals. We've met the civil defense workers. We've met the paramedics, and we've been to these stations. And all that you can see there are the kind of things that you would find in any hospital, in any medical station, in any ambulance, anywhere in the world. These are medical facilities there, and they should be protected under international law. Of course, targeting these deliberately is a war crime, but it's just one of many that we're seeing here on the ground in Lebanon.